The drilling machines cut through rock and dirt with steady precision. Dr. Velix Thornscale watched the readouts on his scanner, his reptilian eyes focused on the strange readings coming from deep underground. Something massive lay buried beneath the surface of Kepler 442c. Something that should not exist.
How deep are we now?
Asked his assistant Kira, a young Zephyrian with bright blue scales that marked her as recently graduated from the academy. 3 kilometers down, Velix replied, his voice carrying the weight of years spent digging through ancient ruins. And whatever we're looking for is still deeper. The mining world of Kepler 442c was supposed to be simple. Rich deposits of rare metals, no intelligent life, and most importantly, no archaeological significance. The mining companies had hired Velix's team to do a quick survey before they started large-scale operations. It should have been a routine job. Then the deep scanners had found something impossible. The object buried beneath the rock was huge, bigger than any space station ever built, bigger than the great city ships of the Hegemony Council. The initial readings suggested it was 15 kilometers long and made of metal that their scanners could not identify. Dr. Thornscale, called out Jex, the team's lead engineer. You need to see this. Velix walked over to where Jex stood next to the drilling site. The insectoid's forearms moved quickly over his equipment, adjusting readings and checking measurements. What is it? Velix asked. The metal composition. It's not matching anything in our databases. Look at this, Jex pointed to his screen. No corrosion, no decay. After being buried for what our dating suggests is 800 years, this metal looks like it was made yesterday. Velix felt his stomach tighten. 800 years was long before any known civilization had achieved spaceflight. The oldest spacefaring race, the Hegemony, had only been traveling between stars for 600 years. Yet here was evidence of technology that seemed more advanced than anything currently in use. Keep drilling, he ordered. But carefully. If this is what I think it might be, we could be looking at the archaeological find of the millennium. The drilling continued for 3 more days. As they got closer to the object, the readings became even stranger. The buried structure was not just intact, it was somehow still maintaining internal atmosphere. Power readings, faint but present, suggested that some systems were still active after centuries underground. When they finally broke through the outer hull, Velix was the first to descend into the breach. His portable lights cut through the darkness, revealing corridors that stretched beyond his vision. The walls were smooth and clean, made of the same unknown metal as the hull. Strange symbols were carved into the surfaces, writing in a script that none of his translation software could recognize. Incredible, whispered Kira as she followed him down. The preservation is perfect. It's like whoever built this knew it would be buried for centuries. They moved deeper into the structure, their lights revealing more mysteries with each step. The corridors were wide enough for large groups to move through easily. Side passages led to rooms filled with equipment that hummed with quiet power. Everything was designed on a massive scale, built for beings who expected to live and work in this space for extended periods. Dr. Thornscale, Jex's voice came through their communicators. I'm reading massive energy signatures deeper in the structure. Whatever power source this thing uses, it's still active. They found the first evidence of the builders in a section that appeared to be living quarters. The rooms were designed for bipedal beings, roughly the same size as most galactic species. But the furniture, the controls, even the doorways suggested that these builders were different somehow. Everything was built with a strange combination of efficiency and comfort that Velix had never seen before. Look at this, Kira called from across the room. She was standing in front of a wall covered in more of the unknown writing. But beneath the alien script was something that made Velix's blood run cold. Images. Crude but clear pictures showed space battles of incredible violence. Ships destroying each other with weapons that seemed designed for maximum destruction. Planets burning. Billions of beings fleeing from something terrible. These aren't exploration records, Velix said quietly. These are war records. They continued deeper into the structure, finding more evidence of its military purpose. Massive chambers that could only be weapon storage areas. Rooms filled with equipment that looked designed for combat. And everywhere, more of the unknown writing mixed with images of violence and destruction. It was Jex who found the first major breakthrough. In what appeared to be a command center, he located a terminal that was still active. The screen glowed with symbols and readouts that slowly began to change as he worked with the controls. It's learning, he said with amazement. The computer system is analyzing our language patterns and trying to establish communication protocols. Hours passed as the team worked with the alien computer. Slowly, words began to appear on the screen in recognizable galactic standard language. The translation was rough at first, but it improved rapidly as the system learned more about their communication methods. The first complete message that appeared made everyone in the team step back in shock. Emergency Protocol Omega activated. If you are reading this, the Void Reapers have found us. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Void Reapers? Kira whispered. That's not in any historical database. More text appeared on the screen as the computer continued its translation efforts. UES Indomitable. Terran Colonial Defense Force. Captain Sarah Chen commanding. Mission: protect human refugees during emergency evacuation of Earth sector. Velix felt his world shift. Terran, human. These were words that appeared in no galactic database. No known species used these terms. Yet here was evidence of a civilization that claimed to be defending something called Earth against enemies called Void Reapers. Dr. Thornscale, Jex said, his voice tight with concern. I'm reading massive power fluctuations throughout the structure. Something is activating. Deep in the buried ship, lights began to flicker on in sections that had been dark for centuries. Systems that had been in standby mode for 800 years started their activation sequences. The ship's computer, having established basic communication with the archaeological team, began following protocols that had been programmed long ago. Emergency revival procedures initiated. Warning lights bathed the corridors in red as the massive vessel began to wake up. Whatever the Terran Colonial Defense Force had been, whatever humans were, they had built their ships to survive centuries buried underground and still be ready for war. Velix grabbed his communicator and sent an emergency message to the Galactic Archaeological Council. What they had found was not just an artifact. They had awakened something that had been sleeping beneath the ground for 8 centuries, something that belonged to a species no one had ever heard of, armed with weapons designed for wars no one remembered. As alarms began to sound throughout the buried ship, Velix realized that they had just changed the balance of power in the galaxy. They had found humanity's last stand, and it was waking up. The massive ship came alive around them like a sleeping giant opening its eyes. Dr. Velix Thornscale and his team watched in amazement and growing fear as lights activated in sequence throughout the corridors. The air itself seemed to change as ventilation systems began working again after centuries of silence. The power readings are off the charts, Jex reported, his forearms working frantically over his equipment. Whatever energy source this ship uses, it's drawing power from the planet's core itself. The computer terminal in front of them displayed more translated text as the ship systems fully activated. The translation was becoming clearer with each passing minute as the alien computer learned their language. Magnus AI system online, performing system diagnostics. Hull breach detected in Section 7. Beginning emergency protocols. Estimated crew revival time, 6 hours. Crew revival? Kira whispered. Are you saying there are living beings on this ship? Before anyone could answer, new text appeared on the screen. Warning, unknown life forms detected in restricted areas. Security protocols activated. Please identify yourselves. Velix stepped forward, speaking clearly toward what appeared to be a communication device. I am Dr. Velix Thornscale of the Zephyrian Archaeological Consortium. We discovered your ship buried underground. We mean no harm. The computer processed his words for several minutes before responding. Zephyrian species not found in database. Archaeological Consortium not found in database. Current galactic date not recognized. Please verify. What year is this according to Terran Standard Calendar? We don't know your calendar system, Velix replied. Our dating suggests your ship has been buried for approximately 800 standard years. The pause that followed was much longer. When the computer responded, the text appeared more slowly, as if the machine was struggling with the information. 800 years. Earth status unknown. Void Reaper threat status unknown. Beginning emergency revival of senior command staff. Throughout the ship, systems that had waited centuries began their work. In the depths of the vessel, where the archaeological team had not yet explored, thousands of cylindrical chambers began warming up. Cryogenic systems that had preserved human life for 8 centuries started their careful revival procedures. Captain Sarah Chen was the first to wake up. The cryogenic chamber opened with a soft hiss, and she took her first breath in 800 years. Her body was stiff and weak, but her military training kicked in immediately. She had been a soldier before the evacuation, a career officer in the Terran Colonial Defense Force. That training served her well as she struggled to understand what had happened. "Magnus," she said, her voice rough from centuries of sleep. "Status report. Captain Chen, revival successful. Current status: ship is buried 3 kilometers underground on planet designated Kepler 4M42c. Time elapsed since burial: 812 years, 7 months, 15 days. Hull breach has been created by unknown aliens conducting archaeological survey." Sarah felt the world spin around her. 800 years. The evacuation was supposed to last only a few months while Earth's defenses dealt with the Void Reapers. They were supposed to go home. "Status of Earth?" she asked, though she dreaded the answer. "No contact with Earth or any human colonies for 812 years. Long-range sensors detect no human signatures in known space." The weight of those words hit her like a physical blow. Earth was gone. The colonies were gone. As far as the ship's sensors could tell, the 50,000 humans in cryogenic sleep aboard the Indomitable might be the last of their species. "Begin revival of senior staff," she ordered, forcing herself to focus on immediate needs. "And send a message to these archaeologists. Tell them I want to speak with them." In the command center where the archaeological team waited, the computer terminal displayed a new message. "Captain Sarah Chen requests immediate communication with your team leader. Please report to Bridge Level 1, Section A." Felix looked at his team. They were archaeologists, not diplomats. They had come here to catalog ancient artifacts, not make first contact with a lost civilization. But the alternative seemed worse than simply talking to whoever was waking up on the ship. The journey to the bridge took them through sections of the ship they had not seen before. The corridors were wider here, designed for large groups of people to move quickly. They passed rooms filled with equipment that hummed with quiet energy. Everything was clean and functional, maintained by automated systems that had worked perfectly for centuries. When they reached the bridge, they found Captain Chen waiting for them. She was tall and lean, with short dark hair and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Her uniform was simple but clearly military in design. Despite having just woken up from 8 centuries of sleep, she carried herself with the confidence of someone used to command. "Dr. Thornscale," she said, reading from a small device in her hand. "I understand you're responsible for finding my ship." "We were conducting a routine archaeological survey," Velix replied carefully. "We had no idea anyone was alive down here." Chen nodded. "Magnus has been updating me on the current galactic situation. It seems that in the 800 years we've been asleep, the galaxy has changed considerably. None of the species we knew are still around, and none of the current civilizations have any record of humanity." "That's correct," Velix confirmed. "We've never encountered your species before. Our historical records go back over 1,000 years, but there's no mention of humans or Earth or any of the terms your computer has used." Chen was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. When she spoke again, her voice was carefully controlled. "Dr. Thornscale, I need you to understand something. This ship, the Indomitable, contains 50,000 human beings. As far as we can determine, we may be the last humans in the galaxy. We didn't choose to be here. We were refugees fleeing from an enemy that was destroying our worlds." She walked to a large window that showed the rocky walls of the excavation site. "We went to sleep believing we would wake up in a few months to news that Earth was safe, that the Void Reapers had been defeated, that we could go home. Instead, we wake up to find that our entire civilization has vanished and we're buried on an alien world." Velix felt a chill run down his spine. The implications were staggering. An entire species lost to history. Whatever these Void Reapers were, they had apparently succeeded in wiping humanity from the galaxy so completely that not even legends remained. "What do you intend to do now?" he asked. Chen turned back to face him. "That depends largely on the current galactic powers. Magnus has been monitoring your communications and learning about the political situation. From what we can determine, there's something called the Hegemony Council that seems to govern most of known space." "That's correct," Velix confirmed. 12 major species working together to maintain peace and order." "Peace and order," Chen repeated. "That's good. We're not looking for trouble, Dr. Thornscale. We just want to survive. We want to find a place where the last humans can live in peace. As she spoke, more members of the ship's crew began arriving on the bridge. They moved with military precision, but Velix could see the confusion and grief in their faces as they learned the truth about how long they had been asleep. However, Chen continued, I should warn you about something. This ship was designed for war, Dr. Thornscale. We were fighting for our very survival when we went into cryogenic sleep. The weapon systems on the Indomitable are designed to fight enemies that specialize in genocide. If anyone threatens the last free humans in the galaxy, we will defend ourselves. The bridge around them hummed with quiet power as more systems came online. Through the windows, they could see excavation equipment being pushed aside as the ship began to free itself from centuries of burial. Velix realized that everything had changed. They hadn't just discovered an archaeological site. They had awakened something that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. The question was whether that change would be peaceful or catastrophic. The news spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Within hours of Dr. Thornscale's report reaching the Galactic Archaeological Council, emergency sessions were being called on a dozen worlds. The discovery of an unknown spacefaring species was unprecedented, but the discovery of a species that predated known galactic civilization was earth-shaking. On the Hegemony Council homeworld of Nexus Prime, representatives from 12 major species gathered in emergency session. High Chancellor Vrex, a massive beetle-like creature whose species had been instrumental in forming the council, called the meeting to order with unusual urgency. Honored representatives, Vrex began, his translator converting his chittering speech into galactic standard. We face a situation unlike any in our recorded history. A previously unknown species has been discovered, possessing technology that appears to be centuries ahead of our own. The holographic display in the center of the chamber showed images that Dr. Thornscale's team had transmitted: the massive buried ship, the unknown metal alloys, the weapons systems that defied current understanding of physics. But most disturbing were the power readings that suggested this single vessel could challenge entire fleets. Representative Mira Solis of the Aquatic Federation raised a tentacled arm. What do we know about their intentions? Have they made any hostile moves? Not yet, replied Intelligence Director Kars, a tall, thin humanoid with pale blue skin. But our analysis of their ship's design is troubling. This vessel appears to be built for one purpose: maximum destructive capability. Our military advisors believe it could engage our entire combined fleet and emerge victorious. Murmurs of concern rippled through the chamber. The hegemony had maintained peace for centuries through superior military technology and the threat of combined action against any aggressive species. The idea that a single ship could challenge their dominance was terrifying. Representative Thane of the Crystalline Consortium spoke next. Perhaps we should approach this diplomatically. They claim to be refugees from some ancient war. If they simply want to be left alone. That's not the point, interrupted General Corax of the Warrior Caste. They possess technology that could upset the balance of power that has kept the galaxy stable for 600 years. We cannot allow such weapons to exist outside of Council oversight. Meanwhile, aboard the Indomitable, Captain Chen was dealing with her own crisis. As more of her crew awakened from cryogenic sleep, the reality of their situation became clearer. They were not just lost in time, they were utterly alone. Commander David Torres, her second in command, stood beside her on the bridge as they watched the ship slowly rise from its underground tomb. The massive vessel's anti-gravity systems pushed through tons of rock and soil with ease, bringing them closer to the surface of Kepler 442c. Captain, Torres said quietly, the crew is asking questions I don't know how to answer. What do we tell them about Earth? About the colonies? About everyone we knew? Chen closed her eyes for a moment. Leadership had never been easy, but this was beyond anything she had trained for. How do you tell 50,000 people that their entire civilization has vanished? We tell them the truth, David. We tell them that we're the survivors, and that survival means adapting to a new reality. On the bridge's main screen, Magnus displayed the results of his analysis of galactic communications. The AI had spent the past day intercepting and analyzing thousands of transmissions, building a picture of the current political landscape. Captain, Magnus announced, I have completed my analysis of current galactic civilization. The dominant political entity is called the Hegemony Council, consisting of 12 major species. Their technology level is approximately equivalent to Earth's capabilities circa 2387, roughly 2 centuries behind our current systems. 2 centuries behind? Torres looked surprised. How is that possible? They've had 800 years to advance. It appears that galactic civilization developed along peaceful lines, Magnus explained. Their military technology has advanced slowly due to lack of major conflicts. They have focused primarily on exploration and trade rather than weapons development. Chen nodded grimly. Humanity had been forced to advance their military technology rapidly during the war with the Void Reapers. Every ship, every weapon, every defensive system had been pushed to the absolute limits of what was possible. The result was technology that was far more advanced than anything a peaceful galaxy would develop. "Captain," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving multiple transmission requests from something called the Hegemony Council. They're demanding that we surrender our vessel for inspection and submit to their authority." Chen read the messages on her screen. The language was polite but firm. The council was requesting that the humans turn over their ship and submit to questioning about their technology and intentions. The alternative was clearly implied they would be forced to comply. "Magnus," Chen said, "what's the current status of our weapons systems?" "All primary and secondary weapons are online and fully operational. Point defense systems are active. Shield generators are operating at maximum efficiency. The ship is ready for combat operations." Torres looked at the sensor readings showing the positions of hegemony ships that were moving toward their location. "Captain, there are over 50 vessels approaching our position. If we fight them, we win," Chen said flatly. "The question is whether we want to start our return to the galaxy with a battle." She walked to the communication station and activated the transmitter. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Indomitable. We are representatives of the human species and we come in peace. However, we will not surrender our vessel to anyone. This ship contains the last free humans in the galaxy, and we will defend our right to exist." The response came within minutes from High Chancellor Vrex himself. "Captain Chen, I am High Chancellor Vrex of the Hegemony Council. We welcome contact with your species, but we cannot allow weapons of such destructive capability to operate without Council oversight. You must understand that the stability of the galaxy depends on preventing any single group from possessing overwhelming military advantage." Chen looked at her senior staff. They had spent 8 centuries in frozen sleep, dreaming of going home to a Earth that no longer existed. Now they were being told that their only chance of survival was to surrender the one thing that could protect them. "Chancellor Vrex," she replied. "With respect, we will not surrender our weapons or our ship. We have learned through bitter experience that survival depends on being able to defend ourselves. We seek no territory, no conquest, no dominance over other species. We simply want the right to exist." "And if we cannot agree to those terms?" Vrex asked. Chen looked at the tactical display showing the approaching hegemony fleet. 50 ships against 1. In any normal circumstance, it would be suicide to even consider fighting such odds. But the Indomitable was not a normal ship, and humanity was not a normal species. "Then you will learn why humanity survived the Void Reapers longer than any other species," she said quietly. On the surface of Kepler 442c, Dr. Thornscale watched as the massive human ship broke through the ground and rose into the sky. Around it, hegemony vessels took up positions in what was clearly a hostile formation. The archaeologist who had started this crisis could only watch as 2 civilizations prepared for a confrontation that would reshape the galaxy. The age of peaceful exploration was about to end. Humanity had returned to the stars, and they brought with them the hard-learned lessons of total war. The space around Kepler 442c filled with ships as the largest military operation in galactic history took shape. Over 3,000 vessels from 12 different species converged on the small mining world, their combined firepower enough to reduce planets to rubble. At the center of this massive fleet hung a single ship, the UES Indomitable, dark and silent against the stars. High Chancellor Vrex commanded the operation from the bridge of his flagship, the Hegemony Spear. Around him, military advisors from every member species worked frantically to coordinate the largest joint fleet action in 600 years of galactic peace. "Status report," Vrex commanded. General Korex stepped forward, his warrior species' natural aggression barely contained. 3,200 vessels in position. Every major warship class is represented. If these humans refuse to surrender, we can end this quickly. Are we certain about that? Asked Admiral Nexus, the tactical coordinator. Her aquatic species was known for careful planning. Our analysis of their ship suggests weapon systems we don't fully understand. It's one ship against 3,000, Corex replied. No matter how advanced their technology, they cannot possibly win. Aboard the Indomitable, Captain Chen stood on her bridge and studied the tactical display. The sheer number of enemy vessels was staggering. Under normal circumstances, it would be hopeless. But these were not normal circumstances, and the Indomitable was not a normal ship. Magnus, she said quietly. Analysis of enemy fleet composition. 3,200 vessels of various classes, the AI responded. Weapons technology appears to be energy-based systems with limited kinetic options. Shield technology is approximately 200 years behind our current capabilities. Tactical coordination suggests they have limited experience with large-scale fleet actions. Commander Torres joined her at the tactical station. Captain, even with our technological advantages, those are still overwhelming odds. Maybe we should consider what, David? Chen's voice was calm but firm. Surrendering the last free humans in the galaxy to people who have never faced real war. Giving up the weapons that might be all that stands between us and extinction? She looked around at her bridge crew. These were people who had volunteered to fight the Void Reapers, an enemy that had specialized in the complete destruction of entire species. They understood what extinction looked like. Besides, she added, we're not trying to conquer anyone. We're trying to survive. The first communication from the Hegemony fleet came from Chancellor Vrex himself. Captain Chen, this is your final warning. Surrender your vessel immediately, or we will be forced to take it by military action. Chen activated the ship's external communication system, broadcasting on all frequencies so that every ship in the enemy fleet could hear her response. Chancellor Vrex, I want to make something very clear to you and your fleet. We are not aggressors. We are not conquerors. We are refugees who have awakened to find our entire civilization extinct. This ship contains 50,000 human beings who may be the last of their species. We will defend ourselves. You cannot possibly win against our combined fleet, Vrex replied. Chancellor, Chen said, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of human military experience. You don't understand. We're not trying to win. We're trying to survive. And there is no force in the universe more dangerous than someone fighting for their very existence. The attack began when a squadron of Hegemony cruisers moved to surround the Indomitable. Their intention was clearly to force a surrender through positioning rather than direct combat. It was a textbook maneuver, perfect for dealing with any known spacefaring species. But humans were not a known species. The Indomitable's point defense systems activated first, weapons designed to stop Void Reaper boarding pods, each one capable of destroying a city block, turned their attention to the approaching cruisers. The first volley of defensive fire struck the Hegemony ships with such precision and power that 3 cruisers simply vanished, their shields overwhelmed and hulls vaporized in seconds. On the Hegemony sphere, alarms began screaming. Report, Vrex shouted. 3 cruisers destroyed, Admiral Nexus replied, her voice tight with shock. Complete destruction. No survivors. That's impossible, General Corex said. Our shields can withstand concentrated fire from entire squadrons. Not these weapons, came the reply from the sensor operator. The energy output from their point defense systems alone exceeds our main battle cannon specifications. The tactical display showed the Indomitable beginning to move. The massive ship, 15 kilometers of human engineering and military determination, turned with surprising grace to face the Hegemony fleet. Weapon ports that had been dark for centuries began to glow with barely contained energy. Captain Chen's voice came across all communication channels, calm and professional. Chancellor Vrex, we have just demonstrated our defensive capabilities. We do not wish to harm anyone, but we will defend ourselves. Order your ships to maintain distance and we can discuss this peacefully. Instead of retreat, the Hegemony fleet attacked. What followed was unlike any battle in galactic history. The combined fleet of 3,000 ships opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams and kinetic projectiles filling space with deadly light. It was the most concentrated firepower ever assembled by galactic civilization. The Indomitable's shields absorbed it all without even fluctuating. Then humanity showed the galaxy what 8 centuries of war against genocidal enemies had taught them. The human ship's main weapons fired once. The primary cannon, designed to crack Void Reaper fortress worlds, sent a beam of pure destruction through the center of the hegemony formation. 50 ships simply ceased to exist, vaporized so completely that not even debris remained. The secondary weapons followed. Missiles that could pursue targets through hyperspace streaked out in perfect formation, each one finding a different enemy vessel. Point defense systems that could track thousands of targets simultaneously turned their attention to the larger hegemony ships, carving through hulls with surgical precision. But the most terrifying aspect of the human attack was its restraint. Every shot was calculated. Every target was carefully chosen. The Indomitable was demonstrating overwhelming superiority while making it clear that they were holding back. They were not trying to destroy the fleet. They were teaching it respect. Within 10 minutes, over 400 hegemony vessels had been destroyed or disabled. The remainder found themselves facing a ship that had not even used its full capabilities, yet had demonstrated the ability to destroy them all without effort. "Cease fire!" Chancellor Vrex broadcast on all frequencies. "All ships, cease fire immediately!" The space around Kepler 442c fell silent, except for the rescue beacons of disabled vessels and the emergency communications of survivors. The largest military fleet in galactic history had been humbled by a single ship. Captain Chen's voice cut through the chaos with calm authority. "Chancellor Vrex, we are prepared to assist with rescue operations for your survivors. We have medical facilities aboard the Indomitable that can help your wounded." The offer of aid from the people who had just defeated them sent shockwaves through the hegemony fleet. In their experience, superior military force was always followed by demands for surrender and submission. Instead, the humans were offering to help. "Why?" Vrex asked, his voice hollow with defeat. "Because that's what good people do," Chen replied simply. "We fight when we must, but we help when we can. We didn't want this battle, Chancellor. We just wanted to be left alone." On the bridge of the Indomitable, Dr. Thornscale watched the aftermath of the battle through the ship's communication systems. The archaeologist who had inadvertently awakened humanity's last survivors now found himself witness to the moment when the galaxy learned a new definition of strength. "Captain Chen," he said over the communication link, "what happens now?" Chen looked out at the stars, where rescue ships were already moving to help the survivors of the fleet that had tried to destroy them. "Now, Dr. Thornscale, we find out if the galaxy is ready to accept that humanity has returned, and that we're here to stay." 6 months after the Battle of Kepler 442c, the galaxy was a different place. The devastating defeat of the largest military fleet in galactic history had sent shockwaves through every inhabited system. But what surprised the galactic community even more than humanity's military capabilities was what they did with their victory. They asked for nothing. Dr. Velix, Thornscale stood in the observation deck of the diplomatic station that had been constructed in orbit around Kepler 442c. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see the massive bulk of the UES Indomitable hanging in space like a dark guardian. Around it, much smaller vessels moved in careful patterns, maintaining respectful distances that everyone now understood were absolutely necessary. "Dr. Thornscale," came a voice behind him. He turned to see Captain Sarah Chen approaching, wearing a simple diplomatic uniform rather than the military gear he had first seen her in. "Thank you for agreeing to help with the negotiations." "It's the least I could do," Velix replied. "After all, I'm the one who started this whole situation." Chen smiled, the first genuine smile he had seen from her since their initial meeting. "You saved us, Dr. Thornscale. We might have stayed buried for another 1,000 years if you hadn't found us." The negotiations had been unlike anything in galactic diplomatic history. Usually military victory was followed by demands for territory, resources, or political submission. Instead, the humans had made only one request: the right to exist in peace. The Terran Autonomy Accords, as they came to be known, were simple and unprecedented. Humanity would be granted a small sector of space around Kepler 442c as their sovereign territory. In exchange, they would provide defensive consultation to the Hegemony Council and agree to share non-military technology that could benefit galactic civilization. High Chancellor Vrex entered the observation deck, moving slowly. The defeat had aged him, but Velix thought it might have also made him wiser. The massive beetle-like leader approached Chen with the careful respect that all galactic leaders now showed when dealing with humans. "Captain Chen," Vrex said, "the Council has ratified the Accords. The Terran sector is officially recognized as human sovereign space. Thank you, Chancellor, Chen replied. I know this wasn't easy for the Council to accept. Vrex was quiet for a moment, looking out at the Indomitable. Captain, may I ask you something that's been troubling me since our first battle? Of course. Your ship could have destroyed our entire fleet. Your weapons could have reduced our worlds to ash. Yet you held back. Why? Chen followed his gaze to her ship. Because destruction was never our goal, Chancellor. We learned during our war with the Void Reapers that there's a difference between fighting to conquer and fighting to protect. We fight to protect what we value. Life, freedom, the right to exist. Destroying you wouldn't have protected anything. Below them on the planet's surface, construction was underway. New Terra colony was rising from the mining facilities that had originally brought Dr. Thornscale's team to this world. 50,000 humans were beginning the slow process of building a new civilization, carrying with them the memories of a lost Earth and the determination to ensure that human values survived. What will you do now? Velix asked. We build, Chen said simply. We remember. We make sure that humanity's story doesn't end with us. The impact of humanity's return went far beyond the immediate political changes. The galaxy's power structure had shifted overnight. Wars that had been brewing between various species suddenly seemed pointless when everyone knew that the humans would intervene if things got out of hand. The mere existence of the Indomitable served as a deterrent to large-scale conflicts. But perhaps more importantly, humanity brought new ideas to a galaxy that had grown comfortable with its limitations. Human technology, developed under the pressure of total war, began filtering into galactic civilization in carefully controlled ways. Medical advances that could save millions of lives. Engineering techniques that could make space travel safer and more efficient. Agricultural methods that could feed growing populations. Dr. Thornscale had become something unexpected, humanity's first alien advocate. He had established the Terran Studies Institute, dedicated to learning about human history and culture. It was he who first translated the complete records of the war against the Void Reapers, giving the galaxy its first glimpse of the enemy that had nearly exterminated humanity. The Void Reapers were unlike anything we've ever encountered, he explained to a gathering of galactic historians. They didn't seek to conquer or rule. They sought complete extinction of every other intelligent species. Humanity fought them for over a century, watching their homeworld burn, their colonies fall, their entire civilization reduced to refugee fleets. The recordings from human military archives were difficult to watch, planets cracked open by weapons designed to kill worlds. Billions of beings fleeing through space as their homes were systematically destroyed. Entire fleets making desperate last stands against an enemy that showed no mercy and accepted no surrender. The remarkable thing, Velix continued, is not that humanity survived as long as they did. It's that they never became like their enemies. They never started targeting civilian populations or using weapons of mass extinction. They fought the most ruthless enemy imaginable while maintaining their moral principles. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler 442c, Captain Chen stood in the agricultural bay of the Indomitable, watching her crew tend to gardens that had been planted with seeds saved from Earth. Tomatoes and wheat and roses grew under artificial suns, tended by people who remembered a world that no longer existed. Commander Torres joined her among the growing plants. Any regrets, Captain? He asked. Chen considered the question carefully. About awakening? About fighting the hegemony? About choosing to survive? Any of it. All of it. She picked a tomato from one of the vines and examined it carefully. It was perfect, red and ripe, carrying in its DNA the memory of a world 800 years dead. No regrets, David, we're alive. Our people are alive. Our values are alive. Earth may be gone, but humanity survives. Through the windows of the agricultural bay, they could see new Terra colony growing on the planet below. Human children, born since the awakening, played in parks built with the help of alien friends. Former warriors learned to be teachers and farmers and engineers again. The last humans in the galaxy were building a future. What do you think the Void Reapers would think of this? Torres asked. Chen smiled, holding the tomato up to the light. I think they'd hate it. We survived. We didn't become monsters. We didn't give up our humanity even when fighting for our lives. And now we're teaching the galaxy that there's more than one way to be strong. On the planet below, a young Zephyrian child asked Dr. Thornscale a question that had become common throughout galactic space. Dr. Thornscale, why are the humans so strong? The old archaeologist looked up at the stars, where the dark shape of the indomitable reminded the galaxy that some things were worth fighting for. Because, little one, they learned to fight not for conquest, but for the right to simply exist. They learned that true strength isn't about being able to destroy your enemies. It's about being willing to help them after you've defeated them. And there is no force in the universe more powerful than people who refuse to give up their principles, even when facing extinction. The child nodded solemnly, and Velix knew that the lesson would be remembered. Humanity had returned to the galaxy, and with them came the reminder that survival was not just about being the strongest or the most advanced. It was about being worthy of survival. The galaxy was learning what humans had always known, that the best way to honor the dead was to live well, to protect what mattered, and to ensure that the values worth dying for were the same values worth living for. Humanity's last stand had become their new beginning.